Hello, it's Gem Games, and in this video we're going to create this Flappy Bird game that you can see here on the screen right now. So yeah, you don't really need any previous knowledge of Unreal Engine to follow along with this video. So yeah, let's get started. First, you want to go to the link in the description and you want to download this Flappy Bird resources folder. Okay, after you have done that, you want to create a new Unreal Engine 5 project, and you want to select a blank and you want to rename the project to whatever you want. I will rename it to Flappy underscore bird YouTube, so YT, like that. Okay, and we don't need starter content nor ray tracing on this one, and we want to make it on blueprints. So let's wait for it to load. Okay, so the next thing what we want to do, we want to go to the file and new level, and we want to create an empty level. Okay, after that we want to create a new folder to the content folder. Let's call this blueprints. Okay, let's open it. Let's right click on it and let's set a color to it. Let's set it to some shade of blue so it's easier to see, like that. And here what we want to do, we want to create few folders. The first one will be called levels. Levels. The next one will be called HUD. And let's actually change this HUD color to some shade of white. I like to do it like that. Okay, almost like white. The next folder will be called resources. Let's set this color to some shade of yellow, I think. Something like, maybe like this. Okay. And the last one is save game. Let's set this to some shade of blue, like a little bit darker than the blueprints, but something like that. So the next thing, let's actually add a camera actor to the level. Okay, now I think we can save all. Now it will ask us how we want to call our level. Let's actually first select the blueprints folder and do the levels. Let's call this level 1, for example. Okay, now we have this level saved here on the levels. Now let's go to the resources folder and we want to open the folder that we downloaded from my Google Drive. And we actually want to move everything else than the Flappy Pink Bird, everything else to this resource folder. Okay. Next, what we want to do, we want to go and create a folder to here. Let's call this sprites. Now let's open this one. Let's open the resources folder, Flappy Pink, and let's get all these 4 frames and move them to here. Okay. The next thing what we want to do is we want to go to the edit and we want to go to the project settings. Here, what we want to do is we want to search for a motion blur, engine rendering motion blur. We want to disable it. So false. Now we want to search for a map. Here, editor startup map. We want to select our level 1. Okay. And then we can close the project settings. Now we have to go to the edit and plugins. We want to search for a paper 2D. We want to check that it's enabled. If it's not, you want to enable it and you will have some restart button here. So you will have to restart the editor. After that's done, you can close the plugins. Now we want to go to the blueprints folder. And what we want to do here, we want to let's right click and create a blueprint class, type game mode base. Let's call this GM, which stands for game mode, and underscore Flappy. Okay, now let's right click again, let's create a blueprint class, and we want to create a player controller. Let's call this Flappy controller. You can obviously call them whatever you want, but I will call them this. Now let's open the Flappy controller. And here on the mouse interface, we want to click on the show mouse cursor and enable click events like that. Now let's compile, let's save, and we want to close this. Now let's select open the GM Flappy. And we want to change the player controller class to Flappy controller like that. Okay, let's compile, let's save, and we can close this. Now we want to go to the world settings and we want to select the game mode override, which will be the GM Flappy. Okay. First, we actually want to go to the resources folder and we want to create a new material. Let's call this background underscore mat. Okay, let's open it. And what we want to do here, we want to right click and search for a texture sample. Okay, now we want to get the RGB and connect it to the emissive color. Now we want to click on this texture sample and we want to change the texture to our background. Now let's save. Let's wait for it to save. And we can close this. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to go to the blueprints and we want to create a new blueprint class, actor. Let's call this background. Okay, let's open that. Now let's go to the viewport. We should be there as default. Now what we want to do, we want to add a cube to the level. Now we want to go a little bit further back. Now let's change let's make so that our lock is unlocked, so we can change all these values individually. And for the X value, let's change it to 35. On the Y, we want to change to 0.01. And on this Z, we want to set it to 65. Now we want to go even further back, so let's scroll all the way back. Okay, now here on the materials, element 0, we want to change this material to our background material. Okay, and now you should see the background here. Okay, so let's compile, let's save, let's get from our background window, let's move it next to the level 1, so we can see them both here at the same window. Now let's go to the level 1 and let's move the background to the level. Okay, and actually let's go to this direction. So we have our arrows here, the blue one pointing up, the red one pointing right, and the green one pointing towards us. Okay, now let's click on the background and let's go to the details. Let's change these locations. And we want to just set them all to 0, so we can click from here. Reset this property to its default value. Okay, now it's all on 0. Now let's right click and move with our keyboard with our ASDW keys a little bit further, like that. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to click on our camera actor. And here we also want to set some values. So let's set the location X to 0, location Y to 1750, so 1750, and set to 0, and our set rotation to -90 degrees. Okay, Now what we want to do is we want to, here on the camera options, we have this constraint aspect ratio. We want to make this false, like that. Okay, but now when we play, and actually, sorry, we want to click from here, from the three dots. We want to go to the advanced settings. We want to change our viewport width to 720 and height to 280, so 1280 units. Okay, so it's like portrait view. Now when we click from here and we play on new editor window, now you can see when we play, we are not seeing through the camera actor. So let's fix that. We want to go to here, click on it and open level blueprint. And here on the level blueprint, we want to delete the event tick. So let's select it and delete. We want to right click and get player controller. Okay. From here, we want to get from the return value and we want to set view target with blend. And we want to connect the execute from the begin play to this node. Okay, now let's select both of these and press Q on our keyboard so it will align these perfectly. Now on the new view target, what we want to do is we want to go back to the level 1. We want to select our camera actor like this, go back to level 1 level blueprint. We want to right click and create a reference to camera actor. If you can't see this, you haven't selected the camera actor correctly. So you want to make sure that it's selected like this on blue. Now you want to create that reference. And we want to get from this and connect to the new view target. Actually, we can move this whole thing a little bit closer. Okay? And we don't have to set anything to these values. Now, if we compile, we save, we go back to level 1 and we play. You can see we are seeing through the camera on our level and we cannot control the camera rotation anymore. First, we want to go to the blueprints folder and we want to right click and we want to create a new blueprint class and we want to make the type as character. Let's call this blueprint class player underscore bird, for example, or whatever you want, but yeah, that's good for me. Let's open it. Now what we want to do, we want to add a new component. We want to search for a paper flipbook. Okay, and we can rename this to bird or flappy or whatever. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to get from the player bird and move it next to the level 1 and go back to level 1. Now we want to go to the resources folder and to the sprites and we want to select the frame 2 and right click and we want to, or actually, sorry, let's select all these. So let's click on the frame 1 and keep the control pressed and select all of them. And actually, one tip, you can also select all by clicking the first and keeping the shift pressed and clicking the last. It will select all. Okay, now let's right click, sprite actions, create sprite. Okay, now let's right click on the frame 2 sprite and create a flipbook. Now let's rename this to idle. Okay, let's save. Let's go to the player bird. Now here on the sprite, when we have selected the bird, paper flipbook component, now we can select the source flipbook, so the idle. Okay, this looks that it's super big, but actually it's good size. Okay, so let's go a little bit further like this. And now what we want to do is we want to click on our capsule component and we want to change our capsule half height to 200. also capsule radius to 200. Okay. Next thing, what we want to do, we want to select our bird and set his location X to -100. Okay. Now you can see our capsule component is basically on the front side of the bird, or like basically on the face, you know. The next thing is we want to select our character movement, and we want to scroll down until we see this planar movement. And from here we want to constrain to plane, and we want to set the axis to Y. Okay. That means that our player character can only move on the Y axis. Okay. The next thing, what we want to do, we want to go to the event graph, and here we can actually delete all of these for now. And now we want to go to the edit and project settings, and we want to go to the input under the engine, and we want to create a new action mapping. Click on the plus and let's open this, you know. Now let's create a new action mapping. Let's call it jump or flap or whatever. Okay. Now let's select our key. So let's click on here and left click after that. Okay. Now it has mapped the jump to the left mouse button. Okay. We can close this. And now here in player bird, let's right click and search for a jump. Now we have this action events jump here. Okay. And what we want to do next is we actually want to create a new custom event under here. So right click and search for a custom event. Let's call this jump event. Okay. Now from here, from the press, we want to call the jump event. We create it this way because later on we might have to call this jump event from somewhere else. So we don't so this way we can call it from wherever we want. Okay. Let's leave some space here because we will later on add some code here also. Now here on the jump event, what we want to do, we want to get the character movement, and we want to get from it and stop movement immediately. This is because when we have our player going down with the gravity and we click on screen, first we want him to stop before we add any impulse or any upwards movement. Okay, and also this way when we click it super fast, it will not like multiply the upwards force. So this is the best way in my opinion. After that, what we want to do, we want to also get from the character movement, and we want to add impulse, and we want to move this next to the stop movement immediately. And let's connect it. Let's add a reroute by double clicking on this line. Let's move it to here. Let's select both of these and press Q. Okay. Now what we want to do next, we want to actually create a new function. Sorry, here. Let's call this gravity. Okay. And here on the gravity, what we want to do is we want to actually get our character movement. Let's leave some space here. We will add some code here later. From here, we want to add force. Let's get from here. Force we want to add is on the set, we want to add -2 million. That sounds stupid, but that's good value. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. Okay. Now we can actually try. So if we compile, save, and go to level 1 and play. Oh, sorry. We actually have to add the bird to the game. So let's open our blueprints. So we actually want to add a player start. Add it to the game. Now the player start, we want to set the location x to -250, y to 13. Later on, I will on the next episodes I will explain why 13. Okay, it sounds weird now, for now, but later on you will understand. And on the set, we want to set it to 0. Okay. Now, when we play, we don't see anything. Oh, I'm so stupid. We have to go to the GM Flappy, so to our game mode, and we want to actually, if you are seeing different view than I, it's because you have the full blueprint open. So here, on our details, we have this default pawn class. We want to click on that and select our player bird. Now we can compile. Let's actually save all, because I noticed that we have 7 unsaved things. So let's save all. Okay, now let's go back to level 1 and let's play. And you can see we have our bird on the screen. But he's not yet doing anything. Okay, so now let's go back to the player bird. Here we have created this gravity function. Now let's go to the event graph. Let's actually right click on somewhere that we have where we have empty space. Let's search for a event tick. Okay, event tick. And here we want to call the gravity. So let's get from it and move it to here. Now let's connect it. Now if we play, nothing happens because we actually have to go to the background. We want to click on the cube, which we can actually rename to background. Okay. And here on the details, we want to scroll down, and on the collision preset, we want to click on it and no collision. Okay. Now if we compile, save, and close this, we should have the bird falling down. And as you can see, we have gravity. Now let's make him jump. So let's go back to the player bird. And here on the event graph and on the jump event, now we want to create the impulse upwards. Okay? Let's put here on the set 550 000, so 550,000. That's good value in my opinion. So let's press enter and let's play. Let's see. Now you can see we can jump when we click on the screen. Now let's make the bird play some kind of flapping animation when we click. So the next thing what we want to do, we actually want to go back to the level 1. We want to go to the resources and to the sprites. And we want to select all the frames. So keep the control pressed. Frame 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we want to right click and create a flipbook from these. Okay, let's call this flap or jump or whatever. Let's open it. You can see this is basically an animation, but like 2D, with using like 2D sprites. Here, what we want to do is we want to set the frames per second to 16. Okay, now we can save and close this. Okay, now let's go to the level 1. To the player bird. Here on the jump event, after the add impulse, what we want to do is we want to get our bird. We want to get from it, and we want to set flipbook. Let's connect it, and let's set it to our flap flipbook. Okay. Now let's get from the bird again and set playback position. Okay. Let's connect it. let's add a reroute here. Let's set the position to 0. Now let's get once again from this bird and set play rate. Let's move it to here. Connect it. Let's add a reroute. Move here. Let's select all of these. Press Q. And let's actually move a little bit further down. Okay, like that. And play rate, let's set it to 1. So we are setting our new flipbook, setting it to start from the beginning and set the play rate to 1, so the normal play rate. After that, we want to add a delay of 0.25 seconds, because our animation is playing 16 frames per second and it has 4 frames, so it's 1/4 of a second long. Okay. And after that, what we want to do, we want to select all these, select them, Control C, come here, and Control V. Okay, let's connect these. Now we want to set the flipbook back to the idle, position 0, and play rate to 0. Okay, like that. Now we should have our animation working. So let's compile, let's save all, let's go to the level 1, let's play. Now, when we press the left mouse button, we can see our bird is flapping. First, we want to go to the resources folder and we want to select both of the pipes. And we want to right click and create sprite. Okay, now let's go back to the blueprints. Let's right click and create a new blueprint class, type actor. Let's call this pipes. Okay, now let's open it. Let's drag from it and move it next to the level 1. Now let's search for a paper sprite. Let's call this pipe upper. Let's select our pipe upper sprite. Now what we want to do, we want to set the X size to 2.5, Y to 0.005, and set to 3. Okay. And also let's set the location set to 3000, like that. Okay. Next thing, what we want to do is we want to keep the pipe upper selected and we want to add a collision, box collision. And let's call this set collision upper. Okay, now let's set X size to 3.5, Y to 1000, set to 23, and now let's reset this location value. So it should be exactly the same size as the pipe upper sprite. If it's not, you can adjust it a little bit, and actually I think it should go a little bit further down, like this. Okay, actually let's make it like -5. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to duplicate the pipe upper. Let's call it pipe lower, and let's change the sprite to pipe lower sprite and the location to -3000. Okay. The next thing is we want to select the dead collision. Let's copy it and let's select the pipe lower and let's paste it to there. Now let's rename this to the dead collision lower. Okay, and Okay, now let's move it under the pipe lower. And what we want to do next, we want to set the X scale to actually, yeah, let's set the X scale to 3.5, Y to 1000, and X to 23. The location is, I think it's 0. Yeah, actually, let's go closer and check. Let's actually set the jet location to 5. I think that's better. Okay, now let's select the pipe upper and pipe lower. And here on collision presets, we want to set it to no collision. Okay, because we don't want to have any collision on the actual sprites. So the next thing, what we want to do is we want to go to the event graph and we want to delete everything else than the event tick. And from the event tick, we want to actually first get the default scene route, and we want to set world location. Let's connect it to the event tick like this. Let's move this a little bit further up. Oh, and actually a little bit further that. Let's split the new location struct pin. Now let's get the world location from the default scene route. So get world location. Now let's split the return value. And we can just connect the Y to Y and set to set. But on the X, what we want to do, we want to add a value. Let's connect this to the X. Let's move this a little bit further down. Okay, and what we want to add minus 25, or you can just get the minus node and make it 25, but I don't know, I like to do it this way. So, next thing, what we have to do is we want to compile, we want to save and go back to level 1. Here, we want to go to the GM Flappy and we want to open full blueprint editor. Here we want to create a new function called spawn pipe. Here what we want to do, we want to get from the execute pin and we want to spawn actor from class. Class will be the pipe. Let's actually search for it. So pipes. And the spawn transform, we want to split it and we want to promote the spawn transform location to a variable. Let's rename this to pipe spawn location. Okay. Now we want to check where we want to spawn the pipe. So let's go to the level 1. Let's move our pipes to the level. And actually, let's set the locations. So X, 0, Y, let's make it like 10 and set like 0. Let's move it right so we can see where we want to spawn them. So, okay, the screen ends here, so we want to spawn them around here. So, 2500 units on the X. So, let's go to the GM Flappy and let's set the pipe spawn location. Actually, we have to compile first. Compile. X, let's set it to 2500, and Y, let's set it to 12, because I will show you quickly. So let's compile, save, and here on the background blueprint, we actually don't have anything yet, but on the later episodes where we will spawn some background, we will use some specific values that how do I explain it? Like, we want to set this Y location to 12 because we want one of the backgrounds to be at 5, other one on 10, and closest to the camera to be in 15. So we want these pipes to go like in between them. I will show you on the later episodes. But yeah, and now what we want to do here, we want to change this collision handling override to always spawn ignore collisions. And the next thing what we have to do is we want to go back to the pipes. We can actually close this background if you open that. And here on the pipes, what you want to do, you want to create a new variable. Let's call it game mode underscore ref. Let's change the variable type to gm underscore flappy object reference. Now let's make it instance editable and expose on spawn. Okay. Expose on spawn means that when we spawn a actor like here, we can set the variable, but now we can see it because we have to first change this to something else like none, and then back to pipes. It will update. Now we have the game mode ref variable here. Now we want to get from this, and we want to just get the reference to self like that. Okay, now let's compile, let's save. Now let's go to the event graph, and here on the event graph, what we want to do on the event begin play, actually we don't want to get from the event begin play. Let's first delete the event tick. Let's create a new custom event. The custom event will be called start game. Okay, and here let's leave some space and let's create a node called set timer by function name. Now let's connect it. Let's leave some space here. We will add some code here later. And the function name should be this one here. So spawn underscore pipe. And it has to be written exactly like here. And time, let's promote this to a variable. And let's rename it to time between spawn. And let's compile so we can set the value. Let's set it to 1.5 seconds. Okay, and let's make this to loop like that. So now when we compile and we save all, we go to the level 1 and play. You can see we have, actually we don't have, let's delete this from the level. And here on the GM Flappy, on the event begin play, we want to call the start game function. And the reason why we created a new custom event and we did just call this from the event begin play is because we want to add some functionality here later on, and we don't want to call this straight from the event begin play. But now, just for testing purposes, we want to do it that way. So yeah, now compile and save again, and let's play. We should see pipes coming like that. Okay. Now, one more thing, what we want to do with these pipes is, let's close the game. We actually want to go to the spawn pipe function, and here we want to cut this link. We want to split this transform location, also split this, and let's move this spawn actor pipes a little bit further, also the self reference. And here we want to get the X to the X, Y to the Y, and for this set we want to get random, it's only random float in range. Okay, we want to get this, connect this to it to there. The minimum value is minus 1500, and maximum is 1000. Minus 1250, and maximum 1250, like positive value. And actually, we don't have to leave that much space. Something like that. Now, when we compile, we save all, and we play. You can see the pipes height will be random. First, we want to right click on our content browser and we want to search for a enumeration. Okay, let's call this game state enum. Okay, let's open it. Here, what we want to do, we want to add a new enumerator. Let's call this not started. Okay, let's create another one. Let's call this running, for example. Let's add yet another one. This one we want to call dead, like that. Okay, let's save. Let's close. Now let's open the GM Flappy game mode blueprint. Here on the GM Flappy, what we want to do, we want to create a new variable. Let's call this game underscore state. Variable type should be game state enum, like that. Okay, and when we compile, we can see we have these values here that we have created, or these enumerations. Okay, the default should be not started. Now what we want to do is on the event graph, on the start game, here on the start, we want to set this game state. Let's set it to running. Okay, like that. The next thing, let's actually move this game state to the top, so it's the most upper one. Now let's compile, save, and go back to the level 1. Now what we want to do is we want to open the player bird. Okay. And here, what we want to do, we want to create a new custom event. Let's call it dead event. Okay. Here what we want to do, actually, we first have to go back to our event begin play. Actually, we don't have it here, so let's create it here to the top. So begin play. Okay, here what we want to do, we want to get the reference to the game mode. Yes. So let's right click and search for a get game mode. From here, we want to check if it's valid. So is valid with the question mark. Okay. If it's not valid, we want to delay until next tick. And from there, back to there. So it will wait a 1 frame and then try again. If it is valid, I don't know what I tried to say, then we want to get from the get game mode and we want to get to GM Flappy and on the is valid, like that. Okay, let's add a reroute and move it to here. Let's select both of these and align. Actually, they were already aligned. Now let's promote this as GM Flappy to a variable. Let's rename it to game mode ref. Okay. Next thing, what we want to do is now we want to go to the dead event. Here we want to get the game mode ref. And here on the start, we want to set it. So set game state. And we want to set it to dead, like that. Now what we want to do, we want to get the character movement, and we want to stop immediately, stop movement immediately. Okay, after that, what we want to do is we actually want to create this flashing effect that we have on the Flappy Bird. So let's compile, save, and let's go back to level 1. Let's go to the HUD. Let's create a new blueprint class, all classes, and search for a widget and user widget. Let's call this dead flash or something like that. Let's open it. Let's add a canvas panel. This we have to add every time we want to show something on the screen. Now on the fill screen, let's set it to custom width 720 by 1280. So 1220, 80, sorry. Next, we want to get an image. Let's move it here. Now we want to anchor it to the whole canvas. Offset left 0, right, top 0, right 0, and bottom 0. So it fills the whole screen. Now let's set the render opacity to 0. Now we can actually rename this to flash image or something like that. Let's create an animation. Let's call this flash anim. Now let's click on this. Let's add a track. Let's select the flash image. If you can see that, you want to click from here, so it's selected. Now let's add a render opacity track. It should be set to 0 on the 0 mark. Now let's move to 0.5. Let's set it to 0. Let's click on this. Okay, and now let's go to the middle, 0.25. Let's set it to 0.25 or maybe 0.5, but you can play with this. Let's first set it to 0.25. Okay, now when we go to start and press space, you can see the animation is like this. Now let's go to the graph, and here what we want to do, let's delete the tick and event pre-construct. And here on the event construct, so it's basically the begin play, we want to get the flash anim, and we want to get from it and play animation. Okay, like that. Now let's move the animation reference to here. Let's get from it. Let's get end time. So this gets the length of the animation basically. Let's add a reroute to here and move it to here. And let's align these. Now from the end time, we want to set delay because we want to wait until the animation plays to the end, and this will do it. And after that, we want to remove from parent, so we will destroy this widget. Let's compile, let's save, let's close this. Now on the player bird, after stop movement immediately, we want to create widget. Let's select our dead flash. Let's add it to viewport from the return value. So add to viewport. After that, we want to set a little delay. Let's make it like 2 seconds. And later on we will adjust this or change this a little bit because we want to add the high score screen and stuff like that. But for now, let's just execute console command. This will be restart level. Okay. So now we have our dead event done. Now what we want to do is we want to compile, we want to save all. We want to go to the level 1 blueprints, and we want to open our pipes blueprint class. And here on the event graph, what we want to do is we want to click on the dead collision upper, scroll down, and on component begin overlap. Let's move it to here. Also, let's select the dead collision lower on component begin overlap. Let's move it to here under this one. Now what we want to do is we want to get from the other actor, and we want to cast to player bird, or whatever is your player blueprint called. Now from there, what we want to do, we want to call the, actually we want to first get a branch, so B and left click. Now we want to get our game mode ref, and we want to check if game state, so we want to get game state. Actually, let's move this a little bit further, also this, like this. Now from the game state, we want to check if it's equal enum, this one, to, let's connect the condition and set it to running. So if the game is running, then we want to do the following. So we want to get from the as player bird, and we want to call the death event. Okay, and we want to add all this code to here because we don't want to call this death event many times. So yeah, now it checks that it's if the game is running, and after we call the death event, it will set it to death. So this will only fire once. Now let's add reroutes to here, like this. Move this a little bit further down. Now we want to copy all this code. Control C. Let's scroll down and Control V. Let's move it to here and connect it to the other on component begin overlap also. So both of these does the same thing. Object to the other actor, like that. Now, when we compile, save, and play, you can see when we hit the pipe, you see the screen flashes and the player drops. Oh, actually, we can still flap. So what we want to do next, we want to go to the player bird. Here on the jump event, we want to check on the start. Actually, sorry, not on the jump event, but on the action input action jump. Let's actually move this a little bit further up. Here, before the jump event, we want to add a branch. So B and left click. Let's move this a little bit further. Like this, compressed, and on the true jump event. Now we want to get game mode ref, and we want to get the game state. And from the game state, we want to check if it's equal enum to running. So we can only flap or jump when the game is running. Okay, compile, save, and let's try again. So, okay, we cannot flap anymore. Game starts again. Okay, now we want to add the border like top and down collisions. So let's open the background. And here in the background, we want to go to the viewport, and we want to select the default scene route, and we want to add a box collision. Okay, let's call this that collision upper, for example. Now let's set the scale X to 60, Y to 10, and X also, Z also to 10. Now let's set the set location to 3500, so it's there at the top. Now let's duplicate this. Let's rename it to dead collision lower. Now let's only change the set location to minus 3500, like that. Okay. Now we want to go to the event graph, and we want to delete this. Only leave the event begin play. And on the event begin play, what we want to do is we want to get the game mode. We want to check if it's valid with the question mark. Let's actually add it as our favorite. Okay. And if it's not, we want to delay until next tick. Let's connect it back to the execute. And if it is valid, let's move this a little bit further down and let's get from it and cast to GM Flappy. Okay, let's add a reroute here. Now we want to promote this to a variable. Let's call it game mode ref, like that. Now, what we want to do is, if you rename this exactly like game mode underscore ref, like this, you can compile and save. And oh, let's move the level 1 actually to here. So if you have the game mode ref here on the pipes and on the background is written exactly the same, you can just go to the pipes. You can copy all this on component begin overlap, Control C. And here on the background, you can paste it 2 times. Now you want to select the dead collision lower or upper, like order doesn't matter, and select the on component begin overlap, and the other one, and on component begin overlap. Now you want to get both of those up here. Actually, let's move these a little bit further. So now we can oh, why did I move it there? Okay, so we can get these, align them how we want. And connect the object to the other actor and to the other actor. And if you get some errors when you compile, then your game mode ref is not written exactly the same way. Then you want to delete these and get them again and connect them back, or you might not be able to do that. So you want to get from here the game state again and get from that. Okay. But if it's the game mode underscore ref, here on game mode underscore ref, it should work the way I just did it. Okay, now let's compile, let's save all, let's go to level 1 and let's play. Now if we go to the top, we will die. Go to the bottom, we will die. If we hit the pipe, we will die. So yeah, one more thing, what we want to do here actually, is we want to go to the pipes. And here on the event tick, where we have this movement, let's actually move this set world location a little bit further. Also, let's get the game mode ref. Let's right click on it, convert to validated cat, connect it, and if it is valid, let's connect here. Let's create a branch. Actually, let's move this even further. Let's move the branch there, and from the true, let's connect it there to the moment. Now, what we want to check here is we want to get from the game mode ref, and we want to get the game state. If the game state is equal to enum, equal to running, then we want to set the moment. Let's actually align these. So, yeah, it will not, the pipes will not move if the game state is not running. And this one is just so it checks if the reference is valid before doing anything else. So let's compile, save. Now when we hit the collision, the pipes should stop like this. First, we want to go to the HUD folder and we want to right click and create a new blueprint class. Let's search for a user widget. Okay. Let's call this game HUD or something like that. Let's open it. Let's add a canvas panel. Let's set the fill screen, the screen size to the 720 and 1280. So 1280. Now what we want to do here is we want to add a text. Let's move it here to the screen. Let's set the size X to like maybe 200, size Y to like 150. Oh, 150. Position X and Y to 0. Now let's anchor it to the top middle position. And let's also set the position X again to 0. Now alignment X to 0.5, so it's in the middle. On the Y, let's make it minus 0.75. I think that's a good spot, but you can also set it to minus 1 or whatever. Let's make it to minus 0.05. Okay, now let's say change the text font size to 100. And let's scroll down to the justification. Let's make it to the middle. Now let's set this text to like 12. Oh, sorry, like 12, so we can see how it looks. The next thing, what we want to do, we want to make the outline of the text to like stand out a little bit. So let's click on the outline settings and let's set it to 5. Okay, that's good enough for me. Now what we want to do, we want to go to the graph and we want to create a new variable. Let's call this game mode ref. Let's search for a GM Flappy object reference. Okay, let's make it instance editable and expose on spawn so we can set this variable when we create this widget. So let's compile, let's save all. Now one more thing, we want to go to the designer and we want to bind this text to game mode. We can't do that yet. So let's get the game mode, let's move it next to the level 1. Now let's go to the GM Flappy. Let's create a new variable here. Let's call this points. Let's change the type to integer. Compile. Let's save. Let's go back to the game HUD. Now we can bind this text to game mode points. Okay. So the next thing, we want to go to the GM Flappy. Here on the start game, what we want to do before we set this function, timer by function, we want to create a widget. Create widget. Class will be game HUD. Now let's promote it to a variable. Let's call this HUD ref or something like that. Let's move it up here. And actually let's move all of this a little bit further. Like that. This even more. Now from the game mode ref, we want to get referenced to self. Okay? And from here, after we have promoted it to a variable, we want to add to viewport so we can actually see the widget. From there, we want to set timer by function name. So let's compile, let's save all, and let's go to the level 1 and let's open our pipes blueprint. Let's go to the viewport. Here, we want to create the collision when with overlapping when we increase the points. So let's select the default scene root. Let's create a box collision. Let's set these values. So size X to like 5, Y to like 5. Actually, let's set it to 10. Really, it doesn't matter what is the like. If this is like 500 or if it's 1, it should work the same way, but let's just to be sure set it to 10. Okay. The X, let's set it to 40. I think that's a good value. And now on the did I say X? I mean Z. So X5, Y10 and Z40. Now on the location X, we want to set it to 500, so it's next to the pipes. Now let's rename this collision to point collision. What did I do? Collision. Okay. Now let's scroll down from here and on component begin overlap. Let's move this a little bit further down. And here what we want to do, we want to get from the other actor and cast to player bird, or whatever our player character is named. Then we want to do once node, because we want to call this function only once. Then we want to get the game mode ref, and we want to, get the game state. Let's move it to here. Now we want to check if it's equal enum to running. Let's add a branch. Get from the completed. And so, if our game is running, let's get from the game mode ref. Let's get the points here. And from the points we want to plus plus, so increment integer. This will add 1 to already existing value. Now we can just compile, we can save all, and everything should work. So now we have our points, and when we go through the pipes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and as you can see, we can already play this game. This is like functioning game already. First we want to go to the GM Flappy, and here on the event begin play we want to delete the start game, like that. We want to compile, save and go back to the level 1, and we want to open our player bird blueprint class. Okay, and here we want to first go to the gravity, and here where we add the force, we want to move it a little bit further, and we want to get a branch. Okay, connect it to the true. And the condition here will be, let's get the game mode reference, and let's get the game state. From the game state, we want to get not equal enum node. So we want to check if the game state is not equal to not started. So if it's running or dead, we want to call this gravity force. Okay. Now we want to compile and save. We can close this gravity. Now let's go to the event graph. And here, under the event tick, let's actually move the event tick and begin play more up, like this. Here, let's move it even more, actually. Okay. Here we want to create a custom event. So custom event. Let's call this custom event like, oh, my computer is lagging. So let's call this idle movement or something like that. Now let's get from this and let's create a timeline. Let's call this idle TL for timeline. Now let's get from connect. Let's delete the link from the play and move it to the play from start. You can do it by keeping the control pressed and tracking, so it will move it. Okay. Now we want to open this idle TL, and we want to change the length to 1. Now we want to add a float track, and let's add a key to here to the start. Time 0, value 0. Okay, now let's add a key here to the middle. Time 0.5 and value 1. Now the last one, let's add here to the end. So time 1, value 0. So it is like a pyramid. Now we want to click on the middle pin and auto, and also the first pin and auto. Now it smooths the curve out, or it actually makes it a curve. Okay, now let's compile and we can close this idle TL template. Now what we want to do is we want to get the capsule component of our bird. From here we want to get world location, and we want to split the return value. And also we want to set the world location. Get the update. Let's split the new location. We want to connect the X and Y straight away, so we want to use the old values. But for the set, what we want to do, we want to get from the new location set, and we want to lerp. Okay, and what the lerp does is, if we connect this new track, which is this timeline track, which goes from 0 to 1 and back to 0 in time of 1 second, it will change the alpha, so it's 0, and then it slowly goes to the 1 and back to 0. Now we can set the values which represent the starting and the ending point. So starting point can be 0, and the ending point can be like 100. So it goes from 0 to 100 in like 0.5 seconds and back to there in 0.5 seconds. Okay? And after that has finished, we want to call this function again. So idle movement. So it will basically run forever. Now we want to create a function that we can make this idle animation to stop. So let's create another custom event. Let's call this stop idle movement. Let's connect this to stop like that. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to go to the event begin play, and here we want to call the idle movement like that. Okay, and now we can actually try and see what happens. So let's compile, save all, let's go to level 1 and play. You can see our bird is idling on the screen, but we can't do anything yet. So how can we fix that? Let's go back to the player bird, and here on the input action jump, let's actually move everything under that a little bit further down. Okay, and here what we want to do, because first we're checking if our game state is running. If it's not, so it means we are dead or we are not started, so we are on the starting screen. So let's get a do once node. So basically when we are on the starting screen, it will do this, but it will not do this when we are dead because it only does it once. So what we want to do here is we want to get the game mode ref, and we want to get from it, and we want to start the game. So start game function that we have created before. Okay, then we want to call our jump event. That's the reason why we didn't call our jump code from the input action jump, and we created this jump event because now we can call it from here also. After that we want to stop idle movement. Okay, let's compile, let's save, let's play. So now when we click the screen, you can see the game starts, and when we die, it will go back to the same position, and when we click, it will start. So we want to go to the player bird. Here we want to actually create a new function. Let's call it set rotation. And here on the set rotation function, what we want to do, first we want to get the game mode reference, and we want to get the game state. Okay, now we want to switch on it. So switch on game state enum. Let's connect it. And to the not started, we don't have to connect anything. And to the running, let's go more this way. And let's get our bird. So our flipbook reference. And from here, we want to set relative rotation. Let's get from the running. Okay, now let's split the new rotation. And let's get from the rotation Y. And let's get a map range clamped like this. And we want to connect it to Y because here if we go to the viewport and we select our bird and we rotate, you can see it is rotating on the Y axis. So let's go back to the set rotation. What we want to do here now, let's actually move this even further. And let's move this to here. Okay, we want to get our character movement. And we want to get our velocity. We want to split it so we can get our velocity set. And we want to connect this velocity set to the map range clamped value. Okay, and what we are doing now is we are getting the upwards velocity. And what this does is it clamps different values. So for example, 0 and 1, we can clamp these. You don't, by the way, have to do this what I'm showing now. You can clamp 0 to like for 500 if you want, and 1 to like 1000. So you can clamp it to different values, or you can clamp this to minus 500, so it will reverse it, and you can basically map it to any values. But for what we are using this now is we are changing the velocity to rotation. So the velocity set in range A, we want to set this to minus 5000. So if our velocity set is over minus 5000, then our value or our rotation in this case will be 30. Okay, and if it's closer to minus 10,000, which is the p value, then we will set the outrange p to minus 90. So it will be facing the bird will be facing, I will show you, minus 90, it will be facing down. Okay. So now if we compile, we save, and we go to play. Actually, one more thing, sorry, it will not work yet because our speed is too low or too slow. We want to go to the world settings, and here where we have physics override world gravity, we want to click on that. Okay, now when we play, we will have to connect the set rotation node. So let's go to the, not node, the function. Let's go to the event graph, and to the event tick. After the gravity, we want to set the rotation. Now let's compile, save all, let's go to level 1 and play. So now you can see. And yeah, and when we die, we don't have the rotation yet. So we will have to fix that or create that actually. So let's go back to the player bird and to the set rotation. Now we want to copy all this, not this from here. Control C, Control V under here. And now we want to get the set value and connect this value also. We want to get from the dead and connect to here. Let's add a reroute so everything looks a little bit cleaner. Let's actually align these. Okay. Now, when we are dead, we want to change these values a little bit. So we want to set on 0 set velocity and the maximum to minus 2500. So this will be much faster. And we want to set this outrange A to 0 and outrange B to minus 90. So this will basically just make our character rotate downwards much faster when we die or when we are dead. So now compile, save, go to level 1 and play. And we fly to the pipe. He will rotate down, and yeah. First, we want to go to the resources folder. And here we have these clouds and waves waiting for us. So let's right click and create a new material. Let's call this first one wave 1 mat, like that. Let's open it. And what we want to do here is we want to get a texture sample. So we are getting our texture. And it will be the wave 1. Now we want to connect the RGB to the emissive color and alpha to, actually we will have to click from here. And we want to change this blend mode to masked. Now we can use the opacity mask. Now we want to connect alpha to opacity mask, like that. So let's save, so we can see it. Actually, we can still see it, but okay. Now what we want to do, we want to add a panner to this UV. So let's search for a panner. Panner is what makes the texture move. And we can make it move on the x-axis, so 0.4 on the x. Okay, and to the coordinate, let's add a texture coordinate. And we don't have to add anything to here. So now let's save. Let's close this. Now what we want to do, we want to duplicate this. And we want to call it wave 2 underscore mat. Let's open it. And here, what we want to do, we want to set the speed to 0.25. Okay, and this texture to wave 2. Let's save. Let's close. Let's duplicate it once more. Let's call it wave 3 mat. Let's open it. Let's change the speed to 0.1. Okay, and the texture to wave 3. The reason why we changed these values or the speed values is because the wave 1 is the one closest to us or closest to camera, so we want it to be faster than the ones behind, so it will look like, I will show you soon. Okay, now let's save. Let's close this. And actually, let's duplicate it once more. And now we want to call it clouds mat. And let's open it. Let's leave the speed to 0.1. Let's change the texture to clouds. Let's save. Let's close. Now let's go to the blueprints and to the background. Let's go to the viewport. And here on the viewport, what we want to do, we want to click on the default scene route and we want to actually duplicate the background. Let's call this wave 1. And let's change this material to wave 1. Okay. Now what we want to do, we want to set this Y location to 15. Okay, now you can see something is happening. Now let's duplicate this once more. It will already call wave 2. Let's set the Y location to 10 and material to wave 2. As you can see, we have 2 waves. Let's duplicate once more. Location Y to 5 and wave 3 material. Okay. And let's duplicate it once more. Let's call it clouds. And now for the clouds, what we want to do is we want to set the X scale to 150, Y scale to 0.01, and Z can be 65. Now let's change the material to clouds, and let's actually set the set location to 500, and yeah. Okay, now let's compile, let's save all, and when we go to play, you can see we have something happening on the background. Okay, my computer is lagging super much, but yeah. And now you can see the first wave is moving super fast, and second is a little bit slower, and the third one is even slower. But for some reason my computer is glitching, and all these textures are looking like super, like they are not looking good. I will try to fix that. Okay, I just had to restart the Unreal, but yeah, it started working. As you can see, everything is working pretty nicely. And the reason why we set the wave Y values this way, I will show you. Like the first one is 15, second one is 10, and third one is 5, is because we want them to be aligned like this here. And also now you can see the pipes are set to where they are on the GM Flappy spawn pipe. Our Y location on the pipe spawn location is set to 12. Okay, and 12 is between these two waves. And as you can see, when the pipes come, they will come between the waves. It looks super nice. And also, when we die, we will fall under the first wave, so, like that. So yeah, I think that looks super nice. If you liked the video, please click the like button and subscribe for more. That will help me a lot. And yeah, thank you for watching, and hope you have a great day, and see you on the next one. Bye. First, we want to go to the HUD folder, and we want to create a new blueprint class. Type user widget. Okay, let's just call it game over or something like that. Okay, let's open it. Let's add a canvas panel. Let's change the screen size to custom with 720 by 1280, like that. Okay, next what we want to do, we want to add a little box or like border here. So let's search for a border. Let's move it to the screen. Let's change the border size to like 300, size Y to like 400. Okay, now let's align it to 0.5 on X and actually, sorry, we have to anchor it to the middle first. Now 0.5 to the X, 0.5 to the Y, position X0 and Y0. Okay, next thing, what we want to do here is we want to open the brush, and we actually want to change the tint to, oh, sorry, not tint, the brush color. Let's actually open that. Oh, we don't have to open that. So let's change this to some shade that some color that we like. I will make it like maybe something like this, because I will try to make it look like in original Flappy Bird. So like this. Okay, that's pretty good. The next thing, what we want to do with this, here, where it says draw as, we want to change that to rounded box. Now we have this outline settings. Let's open that. And here on the outline settings, we want to change the corner radius to 25, 25, 25, and 25. Now, from rounding type, let's change the half height radius to fixed radius. Okay? And let's change the outline width to 5. Now let's open this outline and let's make the alpha 1 so we can actually see the corner there. Okay. Now here on the border, what we want to do next is we want to add a vertical box. And here to the vertical box, we want to add a size box. Okay. And in this size box, we don't have to do anything. We want to add a text to it. Oh, under the size box, like that. Now let's rename this text to high score underscore text or something like that. Okay, and now here on the font size, I want to make this like 26. I think that's pretty good. And I want to change this outline size to 5. And yeah, now let's change this text to high score. Okay, one more thing that we have to do is we want to change the justification to the middle, like that. And also, we want to go to the size box here, and we want to change the padding from top. Let's add there like 35. I think that's good. Okay, now let's duplicate this size box. Okay, and let's change this high score text to high score amount. Okay, and let's change this text to 0. And now let's go back to the size box here and let's set this top padding to 0. Now let's go back to the high score amount, and I think we want to change this size, font size, to like 60. Okay, I actually think that's pretty good. And the next thing, what we want to do is we want to duplicate this first size box where we have the high score text. Let's move this under, actually if you move it to the vertical box, it will put it to last, yeah, like that. So we have it here, and it should have this justification, top 35. And now here on the high score text, we want to change this to just score, like that. And next thing, what we want to do, we want to copy or actually duplicate this size box with the high score amount 0. So let's duplicate this. Let's move it to the vertical box so it goes to the bottom, or we can change it from here. And now we'll have this first score. We want to rename this text block to score text, like that. And here, high score amount 1, let's rename this to score amount. And one more thing, let's make all of these text slots to variable. Score amount. Actually, this score text, we don't have to make this, but high score amount and high score text, like that. Okay, now one more thing that I like to do is I like to open this high score, and I like to change this color to some shade of yellow or like golden, or like something like that, maybe like that. Okay, so the next thing what we want to do here is we want to create the restart button. So let's select the border and let's search for a button Let's move it to the screen. Let's change the button size to size X to like 300, Y to like maybe 80. Alignment X 0.5 and 0 on Z, X and Y. Sorry, want to align this to the top, to the middle. Okay, so let's 0 position X and Y again. And alignment Y is like -3, I think. Okay, something like that. So the next thing, what we want to do is we want to open the style. And here on the normal, we actually want to change this color. I will make it like some shade of orange, because it's like that in the original game, so maybe not that much. Or maybe, yeah. Actually, no. Make it. Yeah, let's make it something like that. Okay? You can obviously make it look however you want. And now I want to change the outline settings. So corner radius, let's make them all like, actually let's make them all 5. And this width, let's make this like 4, I think. And the outline color, I would like to change it to black. Okay, let's rename this button to restart button. Now, what we want to do, we want to actually select one of the text slots, so maybe the score from here. Let's copy it and let's paste it under the restart button. Now let's rename it to restart text. Okay, and now here on the restart text, let's change the text to start, of course, and I think we actually have to change the padding a little bit. So let's make the top padding like 20, so it will be there. If you want to change it, move it to some other location, you can make this like 15, it will go a little bit upper. I want to make it like 20, so it's a little bit on the bottom. Actually, not that much. Let's make it like 17, something like that. Maybe even 515. So it's in the middle. Okay, that's good. And now, one more thing that we want to do with the button, because now when we hover over it or press it, it will change back to white. So what we want to do, close this normal, we want to right click on this and copy, paste on the hovered, paste on the pressed. Now let's open the hovered. Let's change the tint a little bit darker. And now let's open the pressed and let's change it even more dark like that. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to actually create a opening animation. So open anim. Okay, let's click on that. Let's select our border. Now let's add a track. It should say border here. If it doesn't, you want to select the border from here. And to the border, we want to add a transform track and also a render opacity. Now let's open the render opacity first, or actually not open, but set it to 0 here on the 0 second mark. Now on 0.5, let's go to here and let's set it to 1. So now our animation is like this. And one more thing that I actually want to do now, because I will forget it otherwise, is here on the border, under the fixed radius, use brush transparency. We want to this. Okay, otherwise here we will see the border like this. Now we will not see it. Okay, now one more thing that we want to do here, let's open the transform, add a translation X and Y. And let's move this y to 200. Oh, actually, minus 200. Oh, minus 200. Now, in here, let's make it 0. So now our animation is like this. You can check it here. It will come from up, and it will slowly come to the screen. Not slowly, but you know. And the next thing, what we want to do, we want to click on the restart button on the button one, not the text. And we want to add it on the track, restart button. Here we want to also add the transform render opacity. Now on the 0 mark, we want to set it to 0, and on the 1 mark, we want to set it to 1. So now our animation looks like this. Actually, I want to change one thing here. Here on the 0.5, let's actually set this to 0. And on the 1 second, let's set it to 1. So now our animation looks like this. First comes the box and then the button. I think that's pretty good. Now, one more thing that we want to add here is, let's add a... Actually, well, we have to do it from here. So, let's add a track on the border, event, trigger. And now here, on the 1 second mark, let's add a track. So that's this key. Let's right click, properties, event, unbound, create endpoints or something like that. Now let's rename this to like open event or starting event or something like that. Now what we want to do here is we just want to get player controller and we want to enable input. Okay, now let's connect this to the target and to the player controller. Now let's compile, let's save, let's move this next to the level 1. Let's go to the level 1. And now we want to go to the player bird and to the event graph and to our death function. Dead event console execute console command. Let's delete this. And let's actually change our delay to 1 second. Then we want to set game paused. So we will pause our game. And after that, we want to get the player controller again, and we want to disable input. Okay, and we don't want to connect it to the target, we want to connect it to the player controller. You can move it by keeping Control pressed and moving it to here. Okay, after that, what we want to do is we want to get our game mode ref to under here, and we want to get the HUD ref from it. Let's move it up here. From here, we want to remove from parent, so it will remove the normal HUD from the screen. And now let's get from the game mode ref again, and we want to create. Oh, sorry, we don't want to do it like that. We want to right click from here, and we want to create widget. And we want to create the game over widget. And one more thing that we have to do on the game over widget, I forgot. We want to go to the graph and we want to add a new variable. Let's call this game mode ref. Well, let's change this variable type to GM flappy object reference, of course. And instance editable and expose on spawn. Compile, save all, back to the player bird. Now we can right click on this and we can refresh nodes. I actually heard about this just a few days ago from one of you guys, so thank you for that. Now let's move this a little bit further, and from the game mode ref we want to get the reference to we want to get the game mode ref and connect it to the game mode ref like that, of course. Now from the return value we of course have to add it to viewport so we can see the widget. Yeah, let's compile, let's save, let's go to the game over. Now let's go to the event graph on here. On the event construct, what we want to do is we want to get our open animation and we want to play animation. Align these, let's compile, let's save, and now let's try. So when we die, we will get this screen. So first we want to go to the save game folder and we want to right click and create a new blueprint class. Type save game. Let's select that and let's call it save game underscore flappy or something like that. Now let's open it and let's add a new variable. Let's call it high score. Let's change the variable type to integer. Let's compile, let's save, and we can actually close this. Now we want to go to the blueprints, to the HUD, and to the game over widget. And here we want to create a new function. Let's call this load high score. Okay. And what we want to do here is we first want to check if the save game exists. So does save game exist? Sorry. And let's call this slot. You can call this whatever you want, but you will have to use the same name on every place. So with the same save game file or with the same data. So let's call this save game with capital S, and user index can be 0. Now let's add a branch. So B and left click like this. Let's connect return value to condition. And first let's do the false, because so if we don't have save game, then we want to create one. So create save game object. Now let's select our save game flappy. And then what we want to do, from the return value, we want to save game to slot. And now the slot name has to be the same thing, save game. So save game. And next, after that, we want to call the same function again. So load high score, because we want after that to load from here all the data. Okay. Now, when we have it, what we want to do from the true, we want to load save game, load game from slot. Now the slot name again, save game. Oh, not GMA, game. Now we cannot get the data straight from this. We have to cast to save game flappy like this. Now from here we can promote this to a variable, and let's rename this to save game ref. Okay, and now what we want to do is the following. First, we want to get our game mode ref. We want to get the points. Now we want to get our score amount, and we want to get from it, and we want to set text and connect it from here, from the true. Let's move this actually a little bit further. This also to here. Now let's connect the points to the text. It will add this to text integer. I will align this, so selecting Q, score under here. So this will set the points amount to the score amount. Actually, I don't know why I renamed, why I named the points a variable points instead of score, but you can understand that. You can rename the whatever variables. You can rename this to score and or this to points if you want, but I can do it like this. Okay, sorry about that. Now this will set the score amount text to points value, or the points variable value. And after that, what we want to do is we want to get the save game ref. We want to get the high score from there. And now we want to get the high score amount. From here we want to set what text again, content set text. Get from here, connect to here, align it, move this further. So because we get this to text to integer, and now let's align all of this. And actually let's move this a little bit further. And like that. Yeah. Now this will set the high score amount text. So the next thing, what we want to do is we want to check if our, let's get the game mode ref, if our points variable, get points, is greater, of course, than our high score. So let's get the save game ref, and let's get the high score. So we want to check if our points are higher than our high score. Let's add a branch. Now, from the false, we actually don't have to do anything, at least for now. And from the true, what we want to do is we want to get our game mode ref again. We want to get the points. And we want to get our save game ref under here. And we want to set high score. This from the true. Now let's connect the points to here, like that. So we are setting our points to the high score. Now we have to save the value. So we want to get from the save game ref, and we want to save game to slot. Connect it to here. Let's add a reroute, of course, like always. Let's align this better. Now the slot name is again the save game. Yeah. Okay. And everything should work. So let's compile and save. We have still things to do, but let's try. So now let's die. Everything should say 0. Now we have to close because the restart button doesn't yet work. Okay, now when we get high score, let's see, 1, and we die. Oh, one thing that I forgot. Here on the game over event graph, event construct, what we want to do here is, let's actually move this play animation a little bit further. Let's get our load high score and play it before. Now, compile the same and let's try again. So, let's go, oh shoot. Let's fly over, get 1 point. Now, everything should work. Our high score is still 0. Why is that? Okay, now I understand. It will not work yet, so let's continue working. I will show you soon how it works, or how we will make it work. Okay, so here we save this, and yeah. Now, what we want to do, we want to go back to the designer. Here, oh, what has happened with this? Let's scroll this down. Here we want to select our high score amount. Let's actually go closer. High score amount, and let's add an animation. And let's call this animation high score anim. Let's add a track, high score amount, track, let's add a transform, and on 0, let's set it to, let's actually open it first, translation, scale, let's set it X scale to 1, Y scale to 1. Sorry, we can add them from here. Now let's go to 0.5. And let's also select this and press enter, and also enter, or you can click from here, it will add keyframes to here. Now let's go to 1. Let's set this to 0 and 0. Now let's go back to the, let's go to 1.5. Let's set these back to 1. So what this does now is it will wait 0.5 seconds and it will make the high score go away and come back. And now what we want to do is we want to here on the 1 second mark, we want to add a event trigger track. Now let's add a key. Let's double click on that. High score amount event. That can be called like that. What we want to do here now is we want to get the high score amount first, and we want to set color and opacity like this. Now we have to get from this and make slide color. Now let's go back to the designer for a second. Let's select our high score text and open this color and opacity. Let's copy this value from here. Okay, now let's go back to the graph. Now to here, let's paste this value to the same slot. Enter, and okay, we have the same color there. Let's move this a little bit further down. Actually, this a little bit further. Let's add a, actually not there. Let's get from here, and let's set text. Okay, let's connect it to here. Let's move it a little bit further. Let's add a reroute to here, also to here, and also to here. So it looks clean. Now, I actually want to make that align a little bit better. So I will select all of these, press Q, and now it looks a lot better. Now, to the text here, what we want to do, we want to get from it, actually we don't want to get from it, we want to get the save game ref. We want to get the high score, and we want to connect this to here. This, let's align all of these, let's move this a little bit further, all these things a little bit, sorry, this closer and this further. I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah. So, like this, we are getting the high score to here. And now, let's compile, let's save, let's go to the load high score. And here, after we have saved this high score again, we want to play this animation that we just created. So high score anim, let's play animation. Like this. So now when we compile, we save all and we play. Let's see, everything should work. Not everything, but almost everything. So high score 1, that's from before. Let's try again. We get 2. Let's see. 2, like that. Now you can see we have this nice high score changing animation when we get the new high score. When we don't get, it will be like this. So yeah, it's looking pretty nice. Now let's make the restart button work. So let's go back to the game over and to the designer. Let's select the restart button, scroll down. Let's actually make this a little bit smaller. And on clicked event, let's move this a little bit further down. Oh, we have to create the close animation first. So let's go to designer. Let's click on the open animation. Let's duplicate it and let's call it close anim, because this is the easiest way now, because I want to do basically almost the same things. Now on the 0, we want to set the border render opacity to 1. And on 0.5, we want to set it to 0. Now on the 0, let's set the translation Y to 0. And on 0.5, let's set it to positive 200. Or is it? Let's see. Yes, like that. And also, button opacity, not like that. We actually... Okay, I actually want to click from here. Oh, no. Let's select all of these. I made a little mistake. Now let's move all these here from 0.5 to 1. Now here on 0, we want to add a render opacity track and transform track. So now it looks like this, okay? Now we want to fix the button. So on the 0, let's make it 1. On the 0.5, let's make it 0. It already is. And here we want to make it, on the 1, we want to make it 0. So now it should look like this. I think that's pretty good. Now we have here on the 1 second mark this event. Let's right click. Let's change this event to create new endpoint. And this event is what it is. It is oh yeah, this is the restart event. So let's actually move this open event. Start event. Okay, let's rename this restart event. Now here we want to just do a execute console command, and it will be restart level like that. And now from here, on click restart button, what we want to do, we want to get this close anim, and we want to just play it. And it will call this after 1 second. So play animation like this. Let's align this a little bit better. Let's move this a little bit further down, and let's actually move all of these restart things a little bit further. Set the high score. Let's give him a little bit space like that. Let's compile. Let's save. Let's actually try if everything works. So if we die, we press restart. Yeah, everything is looking pretty nice. Let's try one more thing. Oh, I didn't want to do it like that. So like this, new high score changes, and yeah. We want to go to the blueprints. So we want to go to the pipes blueprint class. And here on the event graph, where we move the pipes, so when we are setting the world location, what we want to do here is now we have this -25 here. How can we make this work with any FPS? It is as simple as you want to get world delta seconds. Then you want to multiply it by our base FPS. Actually, you can see my Unreal Engine is lagging because I have the 15 FPS set, but yeah. We want to multiply the world delta seconds by 60, so our base FPS. And then what we want to do is we want to multiply it again. And here, the value that we want to multiply it with is this value that we before added here. So let's make it -25. Now let's connect this to here. Let's align these. Let's move them to here. Now, when we compile, we save, and we play, you can see what happens. Now we have the 15 FPS, but the game is working like normal. And if we change our FPS to the point max FPS like 30, let's see, game should work. And yeah, you can see it's working. So let's try even higher number. So T point max FPS like 120. Let's try. You can see the game is working with every FPS. First, you want to go to the link in the description, and you want to download this sounds folder. Okay? After that, you want to go to your game, to the blueprints and you want to create a new folder. Let's call it sounds. Let's open it and let's import all those sound files there. Now I noticed that some of these sound effects are like they doesn't have like the same volume level. So for example this point, we cannot do it yet. We want to first select these one by one, right click, create queue, flap, create queue, game over, create queue, high score, create queue, and point, create queue. Okay, now let's create a folder called queues. Now let's select all the queues, so control and select all by left clicking, not the folder. Let's move them to the folder. Now let's open the queues folder. Now this point, this is too loud, so let's change this volume multiplier to like 0.5. Save, close, let's see. I actually think that these are all pretty okay. Now you can adjust the volumes if you want by changing the volume multiplier. But yeah, now we want to go to the blueprints and we want to open our player bird blueprint class. Okay, and here in the event graph, on the death event, we want to move all this code. Let's select all. Let's unselect the death event like that. Let's move all it a little bit further. Let's get from the death event and let's play sound 2D. Now let's select the sound asset, which will be the game over queue. Okay, now let's copy this node, Control C. Now on the jump event, let's do the same. Let's select all. Let's unselect the event. Let's move it further. And let's move it a little bit more. And let's paste the play sound 2D here. Let's change the queue to flap queue. Okay, the next thing we want to do, we want to compile, we want to save, and we can close the player bird. Now we want to go to the GM flappy. And here on the, actually we don't have to do anything here, sorry about that. We want to go to the pipes. And here in the pipes, on the, here at the bottom, on component begin overlap point collision. Here at the end, after this true, we want to paste the node. Here we want to play the point queue. Now let's compile, let's save, let's close this. Let's go to the HUD folder. Let's open the game over widget blueprint. Okay, I don't know what that was, but yeah. Now let's select our button and let's scroll down and on click event. And here after the play animation, let's paste the node, play sound 2D. I don't know why I opened this, but now we want to click queue, play this sound, okay? And also on the load high score function, here at the end where we check if our points are higher than our old high score, here after play animation, we want to play, and we want to play our high score queue. You can obviously use whatever sound files with this, but yeah. Now let's compile, let's save all, let's go to the level 1 and let's play and see. So, okay, it's working, okay, yes, and high score is 4, so let's try to get that. Let's see. Okay, 5, let's see. Okay, all the sounds work. So yeah, I actually think that was all for this video. If you liked what you saw, please click the like button and subscribe for more. And yeah, hope you have a great day and see you on the next one. Bye.